Hey guys, it's Alex here, here for another video. So if you guys remember our last video, we walked through a really distressed looking home. And the sellers are incredibly motivated, which is a really good sign. But we want to make sure we run our numbers. So today's video is all about running your numbers to see how we're going to profit from this. Okay, so if you'll follow me, I'm going to do a quick little session here on the whiteboard. Okay. So what our goal here right now is we want to determine what our maximum allowable offer is that we can submit to a potential seller. And to know that, there's two variables that we need to determine. Okay? So one of them, and the first one, is called your ARV, or your after repair value. Yeah, there you go. So an after repair value is what the property is going to look like after it's all being renovated. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go onto the multiple listing service, and we're going to look at other properties that are just like the one that we're going to be purchasing, and we're going to compare the benefits, the features, the look, the shape, the size, all these different factors, and we're going to say, okay, is this one close to comparing to ours? And that's going to give us this variable, very important number. Okay, and if you're in doubt, be conservative because this number means a lot. Okay, and the second variable, which I already touched on at the very beginning, is our MAO, and that is our maximum allowable offer. Okay, this is the physical number that we are going to present to the seller, and that's the maximum amount that we can offer to that person to purchase their home. Okay, now I'm going to show you guys how these two tie together. It's a very simple formula. Okay, so how it works is your MAO is equal to your ARV times 70%, and then we do that first, and you minus your construction costs. So we're going to call construction costs X for right now because we're not quite sure yet what it's going to take to actually do the renovations. Okay, so in an example scenario, if we can put it out that way, let's say we have a property that is, after repairs, we're all done, it's worth $400,000 on the market. Okay, and you're confident that ARV is 400. How we would plug this in would be 400 times that by your 70%, or 0.7. Hopefully you guys know that that is the same thing. Okay, that equals $280,000. This is not your MAO because we're forgetting the construction costs. Okay, so 280,000 minus your X. Let's say for this example, it's going to take you $30,000 to do all the fixes. Okay, a quick new kitchen, some paint, some flooring, some appliances, that kind of thing. Okay, so if we put this X as 30,000, then we know that our MAO, our maximum allowable offer on this, is going to be $250,000. So we can go to the seller with a offer, agreement to purchase and sale in hand, and say, excuse me, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'll gladly purchase your house for $250,000. Okay, so this is a really good way to kind of quickly understand and quickly analyze properties, because we're going to be going through so many of these properties, and whenever we get an appointment, we want to put an offer through so that we give the seller an option. Okay, and this is a really quick and easy way to do it. The sticking points where a lot of people make mistakes. ARV, they anticipate they're going to get a lot more than what they actually might get for their property. Okay, be very conservative here and make sure that you're looking at your numbers right. Now, there's a fine line here, right? You can't be too conservative because at the same time you'll miss out on a lot of opportunities. Okay, so make sure that when you're talking to your real estate agent, when you're talking to other investors who maybe bought properties on the same street or know the area, that you're being realistic with what this number is. The second number, the second real variable, is this X. That's your construction costs. Okay, so what you want to make sure is that when you're getting your quotes are detailed in what they're going to be performing, how they're going to be doing the work, what they're including in your quote and what they're not. Okay, it's very important because sometimes a contractor will say, well, that wasn't necessarily in my quote. I didn't agree to do this part of the work. You have to make sure it's all documented so that you can account for things that need to be done. Okay, so let's go check out how we're going to calculate our ARV. Alrighty, so what I've done here is I've actually gone ahead and taken a look at a couple of comparable properties, and I've selected them, and I've got them in this this kind of visual layout here so that we can go through them together. Okay, so this property in particular, the one on Burton, we're analyzing. It's a little bit challenging, especially because specifically on that street itself, there haven't been many properties that have sold that are just like it. There's another one that I'll show you that was just around the corner, and it's very different. But what we want to take a look at is two kind of main considering factors. One is location and where it's located within the proposed property, and the other is similarity in the actual house. So the most of these are pretty similar. So we'll go through them together and then we'll kind of come up with an idea of where we think we should be. So this one here is on Oak Avenue. It's on the other side of a pretty major street that separates our area and that area. So this area is actually a little bit better than where we are. And we can see here that it sold for $345,000. Okay. It has 2+1 bedrooms, which means that 2 bedrooms upstairs and 1 in the basement, 4 rooms total, and it has 1 4-piece bath. Okay, if we, it has a detached garage, so very similar to ours. Fully finished basement, which ours doesn't have now, but it will have. And remember, the entire process here is to look for your ARV. That's what we want to determine by doing this. Okay. The one thing also to note is this 892 square feet. We on our property have about 950 square feet, so we're a little bit larger, but still I would find that this is pretty close overall. Okay, now also note we have one additional bedroom, which is where a little bit of that extra square footage is coming from. So just jumping over to the pictures, we can see here that they've done a nice job on this. New flooring, new appliances in the kitchen. They've done a fairly nice job. Looks the bathroom looks a little looks like it could be original, but it's a little bit hard to tell from the pictures. And then the basement looks like it might have some shaggy carpet, which we'll look at a little bit closer. But for the most part, this one here is 345,000, sold in 20 days. It isn't half bad. Okay. So next one here is 203 East Avenue North. This one here sold for 295. It was once again a 2 bedroom. The basement on this one, where are we here? Unfinished, and it's a crawl space. So if you look at that, I didn't even notice that when I selected it, which is interesting. There's another one coming up that's also a crawl space. So what does that tell you for our property if this one's sold here for 295? These guys didn't even have a basement. Plus, it's only a 2 bedroom. So 295, which is pretty good. Now, taking a look at the inside, um, the pictures look okay. It looks like it's a little bit busy, but that's okay. It's lived in, but it doesn't look like it's in bad shape. You know, it's being kept up pretty nicely. Um, looks like the windows are newer as well. And then square footage wise, this is even smaller at 700 square feet. Okay. Now, this one here is on 20 Clark Avenue. So this one is very, very close to where we are. It's just literally right around the corner. You can almost see the house from there. But interesting enough, our basement is unfinished crawl space here as well, and it's still sold for 272,000. Right now, it starts to put into perspective that with this one being a crawl space here, selling for 295 on the better side of the street, whereas ours and the pictures are okay, like they did a nice job, but it's really really small, sold for 272. We can now start to even get a little bit of an idea of what the difference in the areas make, right? They're almost about $15,000 differential there, maybe a little bit more even, right? So um, as we actually that's closer to 20. Sorry, my math is wrong. Okay, so last but not least, looking here at 113 Stevens Street. Okay, now this one here is a 3+1. This is exactly what we have as a property. So we have 1 bedroom in the basement as well and 3 upstairs. It has 1 3-piece bath and 1 4-piece bath. Ours is going to have 2 4-piece baths. Now this one sold for 345, right? And it's about 1,000 square feet, so a little bit larger than ours, right? let's take a look at, it's got everything. The forced air, essential air, very similar to ours. Actually, one thing to note here is garage space is 0, and parking, or they do have a driveway. It's a concrete driveway in the front here, 1 space, but no garage. All right. So looking through this property here, we can start to see that they did a nice job, well, at least with the staging. Sometimes it's hard to see about staging. That's the beauty of staging, actually. It looks like they have this little gamer rec room in the basement here too. Yeah, nice kitchen overall. So this is the spread of the properties here, and you can start to see that this street, which is a kind of a busier street, separates the two, but they're just a couple blocks away, so they're not too far. And we're here on this street. So this is the one that was really close by that sold for 272. Okay, so taking a look at this now, I've been doing this for a number of years now, so I'm a little bit more. I understand our particular market a little bit more. I would highly suggest for anybody who is doing this, talk to a real estate agent, talk to some professional that you know, and then get them to justify why they think that. Okay, it's not enough, especially us as investors. It's not enough just for us to take it as face value. We need to understand why they are coming up with a certain ARV, because at the end of the day, when we make the decision and we put in the agreement of purchase and sale, we have to live with that. Okay, so just remember, the agent, if you lose $50,000 on a job just because, on a project, sorry, just because an agent gave you a certain value, that at the end of the day, in my opinion, is still your fault, because you should have done your own due diligence, and you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Okay, so in this property itself, I'm going to conservatively run our after repair value at 300,000. Okay. Now I know this one was a little bit higher at the 345, even though it was one less bedroom upstairs. But with us being in the different area, I do think that it's gonna make a difference for us. So here's the thing: if I run at $300,000 and it's worth more, then that's always a bonus. That's extra folding money in the pocket, right? But if we run our ARV too low, that could mean money's coming out of our pocket. So I'd always like to go conservative. So based on this, let's lock it in at 300,000 for our ARV. Okay, folks, so we're on to the next part here. Now, I've gone ahead and talked to a couple of contractors that I thought would be good for this project, and we have gotten the best contract in place for, or the best price anyway, and also they gave us the best recommendations. So we want to take into consideration all of these different points when we are selecting who we'd like to go with. Now, I'm showing you guys just the sample scope of work here. I'm not going to go through the contract right now because we'll spend a different video for that. Right now, our next process is calculating what our total construction cost should be. Okay, so I've gone through the property, and if you remember on our last video, we had our property walkthrough checklist. We went through, if the roof needs to be changed, the soffit fascia, any of the finishing, the masonry, painting, windows, that kind of thing, right? So we've gone through it. I've made a long list of notes of all the things that need to be changed out, and then we've walked through the property together with the contractor, right? So you can see here it's a cosmetic makeover of 2-unit property, right? And I just have a quick note that we're looking for speed and efficiency, cleanliness of the job site. Okay, so here what I've done is I've actually listed exactly what's the contractor is going to be responsible for. Okay, so you can see here on the exterior, clean up all debris around the exterior of the house, include dead weeds and dog kennels. We saw that there was those dog kennels at the back there. Remove all the garbage from the garage, paint the exterior of the house and the garage. As much as we really love that royal blue color, I just think that something a little bit nicer might pop. Um, Also, contractor to verify if pre-pressure washing priming is also needed, as to avoid paint flaking a short time after application. These are things that I include. Just if I'm concerned about them, then I put the onus on the contractor to make sure that this is going to take place. Okay, so same thing with like the interior, all the demolition of the interior, what our expectations are. Our contractor actually recommended the enzyme treatment, which is really cool. It's a paint that's going to be sprayed onto the actual walls. It's a really, really strong primer, and it's going to seal all of that really bad stink right into the wall. And it's actually super safe, and they use it in houses that have like the same kind of thing, animal pee and that kind of stink, or like
often people that have smoked in their houses for a long time, rather than having to rip off all that drywall, they seal it all in. It's really cool. Any which way, for all of this right now, the price that we got was about $25,000. And just remember, you want to include your taxes as well. Okay, so it's something that you can't forget to include, because it is an expense on the job, right? Just because you can write it off because it is an expense doesn't mean that you're not going to incur that cost. So whenever you get your price and you're going to be putting it into your budget down the line, make sure that it's including your tax, because that is effectively what you owe that contractor. Okay?
Okay, guys, so we've had a chance to look at just a quick sample scope of work that we set aside for one of the contractors who's going to be doing a lot of the interior repairs on the property. Okay, so just as a quick recap, though, that general contractor is taking care of a lot of the little things, but there's a certain couple things that they're not accounting for in their quote, and they're very clear about that, and we discussed this up front. Okay, but for our sake, as the investors, we want to make sure that we are accounting for these things, because at the end of the day, just because he's not accounting for them doesn't mean that they don't need to happen. So to kind of lay it out here, we went and got quotes from all the different individuals that we needed to make sure that we got, so that we could do this project to completion. So our interior repairs, which we kind of went through there on that contract briefly just a second ago, that was $25,000. Okay. Now we also have exterior repairs. Now this is things like the roofing, the window replacement, the soffit fascia eaves troughs, right? So these are things that the original contractor didn't account for, because he would say, listen, our guys just don't do the roofing, we don't have the proper insurance for it, whatever the case may be, right? So he would actually tell me up front that this needs to be on your lap, or I can find somebody to do it. But for this particular scenario, we're acting as the overall general contractor, so we're going to be hiring the sub-trades. There are instances where I say, you know what, this project is just, I'll plunk it on one person and then they can hire their own sub-trades, but not in this situation. So this breaks it out even further. So for a lot of these little tasks, and there was quite a lot to do on the outside, $12,750. So that also included some windows, that also included some parging and things like that for the foundation, so exterior paint of the entire house. Then there was the mechanical. Now, mechanical itself, this accounts for not just what you think is mechanical. This, what we allocate electrical rewiring. This is some of the plumbing fixes that we have to do, and as well as having the ducts cleaned out and the furnace cleaned out and serviced itself. So this came to a total of $6,000. All taxes in. So last but not least, this is kind of our high level broken out. So this in our budget is broken out finer, but just to kind of showcase to you guys, what we always account for is, after this is all said and done, one of the most important line items is called your contingency. This right here is your, oh crap, I forgot this line item and I didn't account for it, but thank God I have a little bit of cushion in my budget. Okay, so our contingency is typically our budgeted or our estimated values here times 15%. Okay, so in this particular case, our contingency came out to $6,562. So this brings that total to $50,312. Okay, this $50,312 is just for construction. Okay, so in other words, how I typically like to break it out is that this portion here is what's considered your direct costs. So when you talk about direct costs to a job, they're costs that directly influence the completion of the job from 0% to 100%. What we haven't accounted for in this are the indirect costs. So these include your legal fees, your holding fees. These include your utility costs. These include your realtor fees when you eventually sell it down the road, right? So for our indirect costs, it's actually $18,000, which is a pretty penny when you think about it compared to your overall, right? So if we're going to be fixing this property, flipping it quickly, we need to make sure that we're accounting for all that kind of stuff. Staging is another cost that we have to account for. Now, some people may decide to put it in their direct cost. Some people may think that, you know, utility bills is actually a direct cost of the job. That's fine. You coordinate it or you organize it however you want. This is how we do it, and this is how it makes sense to us. So in total, when we think of our overall cost to do this project, we're looking at $68,312. Okay? So this is the number that is eventually our X in our MAO formula. Okay? So if we go back to our MAO, is equal to our ARV times 70% minus X. We are already determined our ARV, and now we've determined our X. So we can actually plug into our formula that the MAO is equal to our 300,000 times that by 70% minus our 68,312. So if we do this math out quickly here, the MAO winds up coming down to 141,688. So this here is the maximum allowable offer that we can put in to a seller. Now, there might be different situations where maybe you're doing a conversion or maybe you're holding the property for longer. So this number, once you get more experienced, you can look into it a little bit deeper. So maybe you can improve on that number and maybe go up a little bit. But this is a quick rule of thumb just to give us a little bit of buffer. That's what that 70% is, right? So that's our profit margin that we're building into this whole thing. So if we're looking into what our maximum allowable offer is, it doesn't mean that we have to put that number in. We can very easily put a number of 135 or 130, right? Now, you just want to make sure that whatever number you're putting in, you are strategic, because we're not just shotgunning the market. We're not just throwing in lowball offers. We're putting in a fair offer that's going to make sense to the seller, and it's something that we can justify by saying, this is why we feel that this is the price we have to come in at, okay? So let's move on. All right, guys, thanks for joining me on this this video to calculate what our maximum allowable offer is, okay? So we're going to draft up the paperwork right now. We're going to go set up an appointment with the seller and see if this is something that she might accept, okay? So stay tuned for the next videos, and we'll see what comes of it. All right? Take care.